Well, good day and welcome to Wednesday in the Word. We're glad that you have joined with us in our midweek Bible study, and we'll have those who will be joining with us this evening as well. And just to remind you, we are continuing in our study of spiritual warfare, and we're going to continue today. I'll not make a promise to you that I will finish this section, because if I do, I know I will break it. Too good of stuff, but anyway, we will mush and do as we need to do to be able to cover what we're looking at. In this, take your Bibles though, if you will, turn to Ephesians chapter 6. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 and 11 and 12 serves as our foundational text that we're looking at. And three things that we are looking in this overall view of this study, and we're still in the first section. Three sections are the battle we face. This is what we're looking at today. Behind enemy lines, that'll be our next major section. And then God's armory, tools to defeat Satan in our lives. And we'll be looking at that, especially in Ephesians chapter 6. Get your Bibles, we'll look at there. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10 says, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places." In the section we're looking at called The Battle We Face, we have looked at the question, what is spiritual warfare? What are the various views of spiritual warfare? Why study spiritual warfare? What is the history of spiritual warfare? And then this final section, which is a little bit lengthy, but that's okay. What are the enemies we face in spiritual warfare? And again, with this, we are going from the macro level to the micro level in our study. Think of a large funnel and think of everything coming into it, and then we're going to continually narrow our focus down as we continue this study. So we're still at this macro level of looking at the large overall picture. And I shared with you before, think of a generals around a large board where they have little things that look like mountains and hills and rivers that are the battlefield. And they're looking at the various fronts of where we're going to, where we think the enemy is going to attack, where we need to put our forces, and where we need to be able to see what the enemy is doing. So we're looking at a large board. These are the large attacks. These are the major fronts that confront us. And there's three of them. The first one that we are looking at, and we started with this last week, the first enemy front that we face called the world. The world simply is a world system of thought that influences education, music, art, clothing, mass media, entertainment, government. Basically, it is the prevailing thoughts and the culture around us. And culture is just the way we do things. Every country, every group of people have different cultures. There's a Conway culture, there's a South Carolina culture, there's a Southern culture, there's an American culture. In other words, there are different levels of these cultures that go up. But all of these are influenced by, there are ideas. Ideas have consequences. Ideas, philosophies. Think about some of the ideas that have influenced the way that all of we think. There was a philosophy that came out of, I believe, the pit that came to a man. We had Karl Marx. Karl Marx came up with communism, socialism. And world history has been changed. The world we live in today has been influenced by that one idea. There was a guy by the name of, you've heard of him, Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin, The Origin of the Species, the Beagle, the ship, and going out to Galapagos Island and writing that book. How we think, education, everything that goes on in society today is influenced by that idea. Ideas have consequences. And that influences the culture, that influences the way we think. And the default mode of the depraved heart. What's a depraved heart? That's what we are born with. We are born with a sinful, rebellious heart. We are born with the default mode to go to that which is against God. Because a depraved nature, a sinful, rebellious nature, is the very heart of Satan. That's why he rebelled against God. It is that nature that we inherit, that comes to us, that has corrupted all of mankind when Adam and Eve sinned in the Garden of Eden, and every child born since then who come from the seed of Adam and Eve are born with this depraved, sinful nature. So the default mode of every single person, every single child is born a depraved, inspired by Satan sinner. Now, when I say this, and I've said this in the church, and I've gotten jokingly some comment about this, about when I talk about, I say, when you look at those children in the nursery, you are not looking at little baby angels. The more correct theological way to look at a baby is that is a demon from the pit of hell. Now, I'm not exaggerating, because they are more in line with the devil than they are with God. They are born with a sinful nature. Now, do you have to teach a child how to lie? No. You have to teach a child to be thankful. Children are born selfish, dependent, needy, take care of me. They will terrorize you in a 10, 15, 20-pound form. Because why? Why do they act that way? Well, because of their sinful nature, and also because of the culture in which they live. Everything about our culture promotes and feeds the flesh. It is that world system that comes upon us. And as Satan in this world system, think about it this way, is that don't think about him, with his tail and his pointy horns and his, pitchfork, and that he's out going, I am, look at me, I am controlling all of the world systems of this world. Do you remember from The Wizard of Oz, when they got there to the capital of Oz, and they wanted to see the wizard? And they're all there, and there's this big fire that goes up, and this, they're standing there, and they're all kind of scared. And then little Toto, the dog, runs over to the side and kind of pulls back the curtain. And there's this, guy over there, and he's pulling levers, and he's doing this and whatever. And he's the one behind the, all the wizard. Think of Satan that way. He's behind the curtain. Now, we see but there's someone that's manipulating it. There's someone that's behind it. Doesn't necessarily want to be seen out front. But he influences these ideas that affect culture, that affect the way we live, and that if we do not take an active stand against the world system, we will be influenced by it, not even knowing that we've been influenced by it. And I started last week of talking about what are some of these worldly lies. And we looked at, there's three worldly lies that influences the culture in which we live, that are behind the world system. There's hedonism. It's the belief that pleasure is the chief end of life. Talked about that, how that's hedonism is simply, I live for pleasure. I live to feel good. I live to take care of myself. Think of the culture in which we live. Think of entertainment. Think of movies. Think of sports. Think of Disney World, Disneyland. All of these things, in and of themselves, are not necessarily evil. Don't misunderstand me. But they are, to a depraved heart that does not have a relationship with God, these things can become in and of themselves. In other words, I'm just here to have a good time. And that's what I want to do. Hedonism. Then there is materialism. The belief that things are the chief value in life. This is a great one that has influenced especially Western culture, and especially American culture. We are the most affluent people in the world. The poorest people in America. I'm talking about people who live at the poverty line, $20,000, $30,000 a year, are rich compared to most of the world. Americans who have food, clothing, TVs, cell phones, internet access, education, all of those things are available to every American. Put the lowest American at above many, many peoples around the world. You take a mission trip to Haiti. You take a mission trip to Africa. You go to the slums of Rio de Janeiro in South America. You will find out how we live materialism. And it's an American God. There's a reason why that we have people who their goal in life is to have a business, to be a millionaire, billionaire, have it all, whatever material, collect things. How do I know that this cultural mindset is such a problem in America? You ever watched one of those shows on television where they have people are hoarders? Do you realize what hoarding is? Hoarding is a materialistic mindset coupled with a psychotic mind in which nothing can be thrown away, not even scraps of paper. It is, for families that deal with this, and some of you may have my own family, I mean, you can see tendencies in people to be able to, I have to have these things. I've often said that I wanted to, that when I die, I don't have any control over when that's going to be, but I would like to die like my grandfather. On my mother's side, Granddaddy Carl. Granddaddy Carl worked for the state of North Carolina as a bridge tender, literally turned a bridge on the intercoastal waterways, what he did. He was a farmer, part-time, and I used to ride the bridge there in the summertime when I would go see them down in Pamlico County, down in Mosquitaville is where he lived. But my grandfather lived a simple life, was a believer, loved the Lord, went to church. Me and my grandmother just loved the Lord. There was no doubt about that. Very generous man. Before he died, what little bit of possessions that he had some land and he sold it, gave it away to his 3 children, did away with everything that he had. The house that he lived in, he gave it to my uncle who lived next door to them. The house and land was just a house trailer. When my grandfather died, he had given away his boat, which was his prized possession. Everything that he had, all of the material possessions were given away. And then when he died, the only thing left of my grandfather's was his clothes. And upon his death, my grandmother gave those away. And I remember that I got a pair of his pajamas. I mean, I wore them. I wish I had them now, but I just wore them. I literally wore holes in them because that was one thing that I got from my grandfather. I got a pair of pajamas from him. But when he died, he owed not one penny to anybody. There was nothing for the children to fight over because everything had been given away. The only thing left were some clothes that Grandma got out, divided that out. That was it. I think that's a good illustration of the antithesis of materialism. The focus upon his life was not collecting things. The focus upon his life, and I think it was influenced by his Christianity, his view of Christ. It was give it away. He just didn't collect things. He gave it away. And there was not all this stuff that was there. Materialism. Then there is humanism. Again, these are worldly lies. Hedonism, pleasure, materialism, gathering things. Humanism is I am God. The belief that man is the chief actor of life. Now, we hear a lot about humanism. Let me give you 4 foundations upon which humanism is built. Humanism is, if you know anything about education, there's a guy named John Dewey. John Dewey is, if you study education to be a teacher, that was my first degree that I got. I was planning on being a school teacher. The Lord had other plans for me, and I remember you take educational philosophy courses. If you learn about educational history, you will learn about a man by the name of John Dewey. Dewey Decimal System, John Dewey, education. Dewey was a man who he has continuing influence in American education today because his idea was he was a humanist. He believed that humans were the ideal and that everything come from this humanistic philosophy that we are to be good humans. Now, it sounded good to be, humanity and human, to be human and to be Well, from a theological perspective, to be human is to be a depraved sinner. But for him to be a human was to be inherently good. That the only thing that's wrong with us is our environment. He believed that education was God. And that if you educate children, if you give them the right knowledge, if they understand, then they can become better people. Now, I believe in education. Don't misunderstand me. While my children are educated, I have a doctorate in education. So I believe in that. But knowledge simply makes a more informed sinner. That's all. That's what it does. It just makes a smarter sinner. But he believed that it was environment, and so he introduced us into American school system and school systems educational philosophy that was taught to teachers for years that influences education today in public school is built upon the foundation of humanism. Well, what's the philosophy? What is humanism built on? Four foundations. First of all, humanism is built on the foundation of atheism. There is no God. He did not believe in God. Therefore, you teach. Where do you think this idea of separation of church and state came from? It's not the Constitution. There is nothing in the Constitution that says that the state and religion should be separate. Separation of church and state comes from the writings of Thomas Jefferson. And the separation of church and state was written in the context of not the church interfering in government affairs, but he was writing against the government interfering in church affairs. Do you know that's the history of it? But that is used as a bludgeon to say, no, you cannot have religion in the schools. I told you before that schools were built with the idea public education in America came from Christians wanting to teach their children how to read the Bible. And that's where public education came from. But you can't have God. The devil knows that. So if you've got this educational system in which you have the control over every child in all of their formative years of education, and you have a humanistic philosophy and you are dominating public education, that humanistic philosophy is there is no God. You have to get rid of God. Because you can have no other authority other than the state. The state becomes God. School is God. Education is God. The government is God. And to be able to have them as God, you've got to get rid of this God. So you take humanism, which is based upon there is no God. We've got to get rid of this authority. In other words, if the government is to be in control of all, we have got to get rid of citizens who have an allegiance to something else greater than government, which is God. So you get rid of God. So now you have a vacuum. So where are children going to be educated? Where is they going to receive their authority? Whatever the state says to do. Whatever the government says to do. We do whatever the government says. The government is God. The government controls our health. The government controls our thoughts. The government controls everything. We can believe the government. You understand, the government is built upon an atheistic, humanistic system. And we as Christians have to understand that, but understand there's an authority. There is a God, but the world at large, there is no God. What's the second tenet of humanism? Evolution. If you get rid of God, then you've got to have some way to be able to explain what is. Why do we have what's around us? Why is there a world? Why do we live? Why is there a planet? Why are there stars? Why is there something versus there not being something? Well, if you have a Christian worldview and there's God, you know why God created all. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. There's people, there's things, there's a purpose and a plan because God created this world. He created it for His glory and for His honor. We know where we come from. We know where the universe comes from. We know where everything comes from. The question is settled. And if God is the creator, as the creator, He has ownership over all that He has created. You take away, well, we've got we believe there is no God. So now we've got to come up with an answer to how do we get here? Along comes Charles Darwin. Evolution. Big Bang Theory. Bang, there it was. Let's put these little things in museums. You go to every single museum. You go to Chicago Field Museum, you go to any museum, and you'll see a display of evolution. And what you will see is a little creature here, and you'll see a bigger creature here, and a frog without a tail, and then an amphibian here, and then you'll see something monkey-looking like here, kind of crawling, and then he's standing up a little bit further, and then you'll have this upright ape, and then at the very end of the line, you will have the human being. Have you seen us? It's an absolute lie. There are no transitional forms. There's no missing link. The reason they call it the missing link, the link between the apes and the humans, because it's never been found, because there is not one. But that is presented as this is the way it's happened, and it happened time, if you give it enough time, and enough chance. In other words, enough probability and enough time, if you give it millions, even hundreds of millions, even billions of years, if you take some elements and you continually to shake them up, then eventually you will have what is. Now we know rationally that makes no sense. That would be the same thing. The chance of the universe coming into the existence would even be greater than a tornado going through a junkyard and producing a fully flying 747. We know things don't happen by chance. And of course, the ultimate question is that, okay, for the evolutionist, it is, their argument is that you have something here and it developed over time. Well, my question, where did something come from? You can't have something from nothing. That is illogical, that is irrational. Burns me alive that people who are Christians want to sit back and the world comes at us and says, Christians, you are irrational, you are illogical, get with it, you're stupid, you're Neanderthals, believe the Bible and all that kind of stuff. Any rational, thinking, logical person knows something does not come from nothing. That's not possible. It's never been observed. Science has never proven it. You cannot prove an unprovable. You talking about having a flying leap of faith into the dark, that's the evolutionist, not Christians. We stand upon rational, logical ground that makes sense of all that there is because we have the truth of God's Word. The most rational, logical, well thought out, answers the deepest questions of life, answers the most important questions of life. Who am I? Where did I come from? Why are things here? What is my purpose? What is going to happen to me when I die? I'm talking about the biggest questions of life. The only satisfactory answers to those questions of life comes from a Christian worldview, not from atheism, evolution. If you have atheism, evolution, let me give you another tenet, another foundation. You have amorality. Amorality. A means no. No morals. If you're an atheist who believes in evolution, then you tell me what is right and wrong. Well, no, you tell me what's right and wrong. Where does that foundation come from? What's your standard of what is right and wrong? It's all subjective. It's all, well, here's what I think. Think about how they think about this. Abortion is right. To kill another person is right simply because we believe it's right. Christians believe that abortion is wrong, not because of what I think about it, but what God says about it. In other words, God has a standard. Thou shalt not murder. It's not up to me. It's not subjective. You don't put it to a vote. It's not 51%. I'm going to throw this in here. Y'all just need to understand this. I hate it when I hear politicians, and even Christians, saying that we in America live in a democracy. We don't live in a democracy. We are not ruled by the 51%. We live in a republic, a representative republic. Do you know why we are not a straight democracy? Because the founding fathers of this country understood and believed from a Christian worldview that if you have a straight democracy, then 51% can vote whatever they want to. If 51% says, steal from your neighbor, kill this or whatever, that's a straight democracy. We have a representative government realizing that we needed input from people, but we also needed people with wise, calmer heads to be able to make decisions in a rational way so that the minority has rights as well as the majority. Folks, you don't want to live in a democracy not ruled by people that are evil and wicked. Even our government was based upon some biblical philosophy, some ideas. Amorality, there are no moral absolutes in life. That's the reason. Have you ever understood why, you ever thought about why people have no problem with homosexuality? If you want to transition, be whatever you want to. That's it's fine. Yeah. Kill your babies, fine. Get married, not get married, sleep with who you want to, how you want to, when you want to. Makes no difference. You understand that type of morality is built out of a system is there is no God. I am here by chance. I grew up in a world, I was born into a world in 1959 in which I was born into a world in America in which it was illegal for my mother to kill me. 1972, 73, that changed. Do you realize that every child born in America since Roe v. Wade is born into a world in which the government has said it's okay, it would have been okay to kill you? Do you not think that has something to do with the psyche of how young people live today? Gangbangers, care nothing about life, get into a gang, do whatever they want to do, live the way they want to, do what they want to, because they've been told by the culture, by the government, codified in law that says when you were at the most vulnerable point in your life, when you had no choice about anything, that it was okay, legally, morally okay, according to some people, for them to have torn you from limb from your mother's womb, put you down a sewer line and spit you out into the sewer simply because you were a fetus, which simply, by the way, means baby. That bothers me too. We use this word fetus as though it means, tissue. Fetus means baby. Worldview. You want to know the violence that's going on in America today? You want to know what's wrong with our country, why we see the things they are? Ideas have consequences. Devil introduced these, there is no God, you are here. They come straight out of the Garden of Eden. He did this in the Garden of Eden. This is not new. It's not rocket science. It's not like the devil is brilliant and the devil is some great philosopher and he sits back with his great intellect and that he's, one of these Mensa guys and that he's really, really smart. He's not. We're dumb. He just uses the same thing over and over and over and over, the same lie, same lie, same lie, same lie. And we buy into it. We as an American culture bought into the lie of the devil and we are influenced by it. Last rotten foundation of humanism is the deification of man. We are our own God. Let me close with this. How do you deal with this? How do you deal with it? Is there any way to be able to turn to Romans chapter 12 and we'll close here. This is our closing verse today. Romans chapter 12. And again, there is a method to the madness. I want you to see the overall. You need to see the big battle that's going on. And this is important. Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. How do you combat this? Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight, the sin which clings to us so closely. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Looking to Jesus, the founder, perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. In your struggle against sin, you have not resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And have you forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as son? My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. What do you do to deal with the world philosophies of here? You've got to look to someplace else. And where do you need to look? Hebrews says you better look not to the thrones of this world. You better look to the throne, Jesus Christ, the Son of God. Lived in perfect obedience to the Heavenly Father. And he is the one who is in control, laid by our witness. Look to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith. That means the body of truth. Where do we get our truth from? Not from this world. We get it from Jesus. That's our foundation. That word there, perfecter, means the finisher of our faith. And one other verse and we close here. So we're looking to Jesus for the truth. Well, what do you do with that, church? Turn to Romans chapter 12. Easy to remember these passages. Romans 12, Hebrews 12. Romans chapter 12. Here's what Paul says. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God. Now, where we were in Hebrews chapter, at the throne, we're looking at Jesus, perfecter of our faith, the one who sacrificed. He's the one to whom the foundation of our faith is laid upon. Now, what do? I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice. Who was Jesus? A sacrifice. Gave his life. Holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. It says, do not be conformed to this world. Literally means do not be squeezed into the mold of this world. You know how you take Jell-O and you put it in a mold? Don't be squeezed into the mold of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. How do I evaluate every worldly system? I have to know the truth of God's Word. Where does the truth come from? It comes from Jesus, the Son of God. Where is that truth written down? It is in the Scriptures. Where I can go, I'm going to listen, I'm going to hear the things of this world. The culture's all around me. The culture's everywhere. Television, movies, everything around me. What do I have to do? I look at that and I filter everything through the truth of God's Word. Folks, when I watch a television show from National Geographic and they put up this evolutionary junk, whatever, my mind goes to, that's not true. God made the world. Evolution is a lie from the pit of hell. That is constant. You have to do it always. When you're watching a movie and there is an immoral lifestyle being lived in front of you in that movie, you go, that is not right. That is breaking the 10 Commandments of God. That is wrong. We see these things all around us in the culture, in the movies, in the music. We would teach our young people to filter everything through the truth of God's Word. They could look at these things and go, that's wrong. I'm looking to Jesus. He's sitting on the throne. He's in control of my life. He says that this is wrong. My allegiance is to Him, not to the gods of this world, and that is wrong. Will that cause grief? Yeah. May lose a job? Yeah. Kid may get made fun of in school? Yeah. May be difficult. May have to make some tough life choices. But ultimately, we're going to be living by the truth of God's Word, and we're going to have young people that are taking every thought captive, filtering it through. That's the reason you and I have to learn a Christian worldview of how to look at the world and filter everything through that lens. It comes everything through Jesus and everything through the truth of this world. How do you build a worldview? You got to know this. You got to know it. You can't just throw it on a shelf or hear somebody else preach. You got to know it, read it, understand it, get into and filter everything through the truth of God's Word. Let's pray. Father, we thank you, Lord, for your blessings. Lord, we thank you for today. Thank you, Lord, for speaking to us. And Lord, as we're just kind of pulling back the systems of this world, and Lord, as we've looked at it today, Lord, we do come to the truth of your word and ask you, Lord, to be able to, that our thoughts and our minds looking to Jesus, looking to this word, that all of our thoughts and ideas, and as we view the culture around us, that we don't just drift along with the world, but that we are actively rowing against the world because we are founded in the truth of God's word. And realizing that that is a spiritual battle because there's an enemy who is producing this, pushing this everywhere. And this battle is going on. And Lord, I pray for strength and wisdom and guidance. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Listen, thank you for being in Bible study today. God bless you.